Thank you, Tina, and thank you for inviting me last year and this year, and especially after last year's caregiver panel, we had a chat about, I think maybe we need to put more energy into what's going on with mental health in this population. So here we are today. I'm going to apologize ahead of time if I get a little too academic. Oh, here's how I advance the slides, I guess. So let's start with what is mental health. I think most of the time when people are thinking about these things, they're thinking about mental illness. But just like your physical health, you might not be sick, but you could be healthier. So how do we promote mental health? So let's talk about it. So here's kind of the academic part. So mental health is a feeling of emotional and psychological well-being. It has to do with how we think about things, cognitive functioning. Are we an optimist or a pessimist? Well, we encourage optimism in terms of promoting mental health. It doesn't mean feeling happy all the time. It means feeling emotionally in a way that fits your situation. Now, we have some power over how we manage our emotions cognitively. If we take ALS stinks, right? But that's not the whole story, is it? When people come to our clinic and they're feeling like, okay, I'm on a road where I know it's going to end, my response to them is, you have a lot of living to do. I don't know how much, but we know you're here in our clinic today, and you're probably going to be doing something tomorrow, and we have some choices about that. So we try to empower people in that regard. When I talk about having a good foundation for mental health, and I talk to a lot of different populations. One of the populations I work with now at the hospital are medical residents who are under a lot of stress. They're don't always have good work-life balance. So I think of a good four-legged stool. Very steady, right? It's hard to knock it over. So what do the four legs stand for? Well, one is sleep. Another is nutrition, and Dr. Charvet is going to talk about that. Physical activity. Now, with my medical residents, I talk to them about exercise, but it doesn't have to be exercise. It can be anything. Very famous book many years ago, Anatomy of an Illness. Norman Cousins was so sick he couldn't do anything, but he knew that being physically active was important for his health. So he decided that laughing was like jogging internally. So you may remember this guy who checked himself into a hotel and watched Marx Brothers movies as part of the cure for his ailment. And then the fourth leg is healthy, supportive relationships. Variety is also important for good mental health. We noticed during COVID that people who only had one thing that they could do to relieve their stress or manage difficulties in life, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't go to the gym, they couldn't go out to a restaurant, couldn't travel, couldn't go to church or synagogue, they couldn't socialize, and we saw an increase in problems with depression, anxiety, alcoholism, domestic violence. So variety, really important. A variety of interests and activities, a variety of people in your life. So different people serve different needs for each of us. And, again, back to the empowering thing, we serve a need for them too. And then the ability to experience the whole range of human emotions. A lot of people think uh, when I talk about optimism that we're ignoring the fact that some things in life are really, really difficult and sad and scary. So when something's scary, be scared. You don't have to be happy about it. One of my colleagues and I were just talking about being nervous before we get up on stage. And I said, you can be nervous and be confident. So how does a multidisciplinary team in your clinic support mental health? Well, adaptation is huge. In fact, I'll talk about this a little bit more. The stress response we know physically, we call the general adaptation response. So what's happening in the world around us and how do we adapt to it? Well, in our clinic, we have physical therapy, we have occupational therapy, speech and language pathologists, respiratory therapy, we have people that manage equipment, we have the neurologist, we have the social worker, and everybody brings something to bear on, I'm segueing from our last speaker, on quality of life. Until we find a cure, the immediate thing is maintaining quality of life. And here we have the variety of people on the caregiving team. We have people that can refer to resources that we don't have in the clinic that are out in the community. The ALS Association provides what they provide. I don't need to read all this. And then it's not easy to talk about ALS with everybody. Some of the people in your lives may not know how to talk about it with you. Some of the people we see in the clinic don't want people to have that conversation, so they may become isolated and withdrawn. So in the clinic, you have a place. And it doesn't just happen when you're in the clinic. There's, phones and texts and emails, and we have that communication going on. So, it's so stressful. Stress is normal. Stress is anything, Tina was so kind, she gave me my visual aid here, aside from the slides. I learned in college physics that stress is the amount of pressure you can put on something. This is a business card. You can put on something and it returns to normal. Okay? So, we have the pressure of hunger, we have the pressure of fatigue, we have the pressure of thirst. So we drink, we eat, we go to sleep, and we maintain what the scientists call homeostasis, balance. So we're constantly out of balance, back into balance. So we have that pressure, and we come back to normal, as opposed to strain. This card will never come back to normal. We don't want strain. We manage stress, we avoid strain. And there are healthy and unhealthy ways to manage our stress. Poorly managed stress leads to poorer quality of life and can cause things that are more threatening. So, stress is also a response to perceived threat. In evolutionary terms, primitive man living out in the wilderness, we had to learn how to detect, is there a saber-toothed tiger or unfriendly people or somebody who wants to take your mate away from you. And our bodies and our minds react accordingly to protect us in those circumstances. And all these things happen automatically, physiologically. You may feel it in terms of muscle tension or increased heart rate or rapid breathing or things like that. But what is the threat in modern society? Typically, what we're most threatened about today is I'm not who I really want to be. Am I an adequate spouse or partner? Am I a burden, the B word? I can't do things the way I used to do them. All these questions that I hear in the clinic. I don't make these things up. These are real things from real people. And what's the danger there? Well, the real danger for a lot of people is rejection and abandonment. I'm going to be all alone. Nobody's going to be here for me. Nobody will love me that much to wipe my behind if I need my behind wiped. My kids have their own life. I'm not going to bother them. These really aren't healthy ways of thinking, where I'm talking about mental health being surrounding yourself with supportive people, and we're going, no, stay away, don't help, don't. So stress can be motivating. Stress is what gets us going. If you're an athlete and you're so relaxed before you perform, you're not going to really perform that well. So we're going to go do things. We're going to take advantage of the stress we have, the energy that comes with adrenaline to get things done. But again, we want to avoid strain. We don't want to be like the famous book, the first book written for caregivers called The 36-Hour Day. It was written for people taking care of folks with Alzheimer's disease. But it applies to everybody who's a caregiver, who runs the risk of emptying their tank and not refilling it. So we want to be more open. Now, modern society kind of encourages isolation. How many people know the people on their street or in the apartments down the hall? We move around a lot. We don't have those connections that we maybe had when I was a kid, where I didn't only have to watch out for my mom, I had to watch out for everybody's mom. Like Hillary Clinton said, it takes a village. But we don't do that anymore. We isolate. We have to be independent, self-sufficient, and if we're not, we think we're not enough. We're not good enough. Who's going to want us if we're like that? So there are unhealthy ways to manage stress. We get angry and irritable with destructive behavior and hostility. People will say, I'm venting. But what they're really doing is pushing people away. Smoking, drinking to excess, using other unhealthy substances, social isolation, poor communication, not being kind of straightforward if you're upset to tell the person you're upset with that you're upset, not giving enough compliments also. In marriage, we know the joke is the best predictor of long marriage is when the husband does what the wife says. But the best predictor of satisfaction in marriage is giving compliments. And I don't think a lot of people do that enough. But when I tell them that in the clinic or in my office, they say, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But a lot of people aren't comfortable giving compliments. A lot of people aren't comfortable getting compliments. Change, following through on healthy advice. Change is hard. It's even hard when you really want to change. If you don't want to change, it's not going to happen. And then I'm okay, minimizing the impact of real events in our life. Now, it doesn't mean we can't acknowledge difficult things and still have an optimistic attitude. I had that roof blown off my house in a hurricane, and I looked up where the roof used to be, and the first thing I thought was I'm one of those people on Channel 7. The second thing was, I guess I get a new house. Well, my wife looked at the same thing and said, we're homeless. And think about how those two statements affect your emotional reactions. So just as there's a stress response, there's a relaxation response that we can engage by doing deep relaxation exercises. In fact, really helpful for people. Tamara's going to talk about that, to slow breathing, to maximize healthy breathing and not stress breathing. Have a whole bunch of things here. Prayer especially can be a deep relaxation experience. Approach versus avoidance coping strategies. When there's a problem that has a solution, approach. When there's a problem that doesn't have a solution, don't bang your head on the wall. Emotion-focused versus problem-focused coping. Same thing. If there's a problem that has a solution, focus on the problem. But if there's not, we can experience our emotions. Whether there's internal or external locus of control is where's our power in dealing with something. And in communication, really, really important. Now, I want to spend a little time talking about mental illness because it's real. It's a disease process. It is not something to be ashamed of or admit or acknowledge because there are effective treatments. And I'm going to kind of skip through this part a little bit. Most common mental illnesses, both in the world in general and in our clinics, we see as anxiety. About 30% in the general population. There are whole different kinds of anxiety disorders, depression. Oddly enough, I don't experience it a lot in the clinic with people with ALS. I don't know how to deal with that. Sadness, yes, but that's not depression. And then these other more significant major mental illnesses like bipolar and schizophrenia. And cognitive disorders can either be acquired, so we know a certain percentage of people with ALS are going to develop cognitive problems, but that's not the only, there's dementias, there's traumatic brain injury, there are other things, and developmental learning disabilities, ADHD, other kinds of developmental cognitive problems. So how do you get a diagnosis? Well, you interview with a professional. We can do formal testing, and we can do cognitive testing to make the diagnosis. It's not something we just shoot from the hip with. Suicidality is a real thing, even though it's rare that people commit suicide. It is often preventable. A lot of times people who get a first diagnosis with ALS, they're saying, well, how can I get up to Maine so that I can have assisted suicide, or Oregon or something like that? There are things we can do to make life worth living. And one of the main things we do is instill hope. Hopelessness is a better predictor of suicide than depression is. Also, trauma is a better predictor of suicide than depression. So if you happen to be a combat veteran who has PTSD and ALS and doesn't see much future, you might be at risk. But we hear in a lot of our patients say, well, I don't want to live like this. Well, it doesn't mean they're going to go commit suicide, but it is something to pay attention to. There are hotlines, there are things we can do to instill that quality of life and hope. A lot of treatments that are really effective. Psychotherapy, medication, The data is really supporting what I believe for a long time is that aerobic exercise, which includes laughing, is a good antidepressant, deep relaxation, transcranial magnetic stimulation, ECT, and there are supplements, and not much known yet about marijuana and psychedelics from the scientific literature, but anecdotally, a lot of people report benefit from these things. I was just speaking with the art director about the benefits of art therapy and music therapy and these kinds of things. So, in our clinic, dealing with the helplessness seems to be a major hill to climb for people. And for us too, as clinicians, because we can't fix this disease. So how do we deal with our helplessness? Well, one thing I'm going to tell patients with ALS is let people help, because you're taking away some of the helplessness from your loved ones, the people who care. Let them do something for you. Be willing to accept that help. To me, it's, I phrase it as, this is love in action. Let people love you. Because you deserve to be loved. And find the blessings, and that's one of them, that, wow. I say to people, do you ever believe that somebody would love you that much? And they say, no. But we have proof. It's a real test of faith. An awful lot of our people in the clinic, I say, well, how do you cope? They go, well, I rely on my faith. I go, okay, well, what does faith mean to you? Things are going to be okay? Well, I don't know what okay means for any particular individual, but if you have faith, you believe things are going to be okay, whether it's going to heaven or a cure or whatever it is you have hope with, and resilience. Being able to continue to adapt that. The first patient that Dr. Locatelli ever sent to me said to me, well, if I can't walk, I'm done. And then he couldn't walk, and he said, well, I'm still having a good time. He said, but if I can't eat, I'm done. Well, then he had a peg tube, and he said, well, I'm still having a good time. And then he said, well, and the goalposts kept moving because his quality of life was sustaining and he was being resilient. And the bottom line, last thing I have to say, I think, is keep on living. What can you take home? There's a lot here. I don't know if they can make this slide presentation available someplace where you can have this list. But there are a lot of things we can do to promote mental health. And there are a lot of things that we probably shouldn't do that take away from our mental health. I'm leaving this up for a minute so people can take pictures of it if they want. And if you suspect somebody may have an issue, talk to them kindly, honestly, openly. There's a lot of help, whether it's individually, somebody like me, or through medication. And there's no need to suffer. We don't get extra points for suffering. So you don't prove anything by trying to tough it out. We're a team. That's why the clinic works, as a multidisciplinary team. Wow, right on time.
My name is Emilio Garcia. I'm here with my wife, Patricia Garcia, on her behalf. We have been married 59 years. Okay?
That's a good
and
start.
You said something that really, really, really stuck to my heart. And what you said was, as we all progress through life, husband and wife, whatever the relationship might be, You know, we grow, we fight, this, that, this, that, this, that. But as we find out that there's a situation which is life-changing, you seem to grow closer in love. And I gotta tell you,
Help him out, will you? You have the power of
the
comforting
last
him.
several months, I feel closer and more in love to her than many, many, many years. And it's just what you said.
Yeah.
It's exactly the words that came out of your mouth. You know, when someone has a condition, you feel closer. And we are very, very fortunate. We will speak later. We have a wonderful doctor who's in house right now, Dr. Lucaselli. And we will meet with him later today. He has been taking care of us beyond belief. What a wonderful, all of you all. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I had to say that because it meant to me that I've been married 59 years. That's a lifetime. But in the last 3 or 4 months, I feel closer.
Okay.
Maybe it's
Well,
God.
I want to thank you for sharing that,
Yeah, I felt I
but
had
also for validating me.
to. Exactly what you said. Thank you very much, Dr. Riddler. Thank you.
All right, somebody over here
My
had a
pleasure.
question.
Sorry to interrupt.
There's a microphone here. So she said, what medications do I suggest? Well, first of all, I'm a psychologist. I'm not a medical doctor, so you know, treating things like depression, anxiety, and so on with medication isn't an exact science. There are psychiatrists I know who do all kinds of blood work and stuff, who think they can match on the basis of blood work what medication is good for them, but people are very idiosyncratic when it comes to their response to medication, and ALS makes it much more complicated. So it really is a team effort between you. It may be your primary care doctor, it may be the neurologist in the ALS clinic, who really have to look at the big picture to decide which medication works best for you. But my training was that medication is like a baseball glove. A baseball glove makes it easier to catch the ball, but it doesn't catch the ball for you. You still have to do things, maybe change the way you think about things, or the way you behave, or how you engage in different kinds of activities, and the medication makes it easier to do that. It makes it easier to see whether the glass is half full, or maybe completely full, half water, half air.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for being so attentive, and maybe next year we'll get an hour for mental health.